Good evening, and welcome to the League of Women Voters of the Eastern Upper Peninsula. And this is a forum for the candidates for City Commission. There are five, I don't live in the city, so I'm confused. There are 5 candidates for 3 seats.
Who are we missing?
Scott Marble was unable to come tonight because of our work conflict.
Oh.
So call him up and ask all the questions that I want to ask.
I plan on it. You know me.
I'm the moderator for the evening. I used to teach junior high, so if you don't observe the rules, I'll get on your case.
Ooh.
I already took the candidates out in the hall. Oh, Paul's probably taking this.
We started.
Yeah. Les Townsend is the timekeeper. Les lives on Sugar Island, so he's not into this candidate at all. Kelly Townsend also lives on Sugar Island, and she is getting the questions from you and also screening them for appropriateness. We ask that you ask questions that are general, that can be directed to each person, each candidate, because that's how I will do it. The League of Women Voters is a 101-year-old political organization dedicated to defending democracy by encouraging and informing voters. We are nonpartisan. We neither support nor oppose any candidate or political party. Any event sponsored by the League of Women Voters is conducted with the utmost respect to neutrality and nonpartisanship. Our intention is to conduct a public event with fairness and even-handedness. Before introducing the candidates, let me review the ground rules for this event. All candidates have been previously informed of them and have agreed to abide by them. They didn't bring any campaign materials, so you won't see any of them outside because they followed that rule. We don't want anyone raising signs or anything like that for your preferred candidate. Filming or recording of this is strictly forbidden.
Okay, so I can't.
No.
Can I type the questions and answers?
Sure,
Thank
sure,
you.
if you want to do that, yeah.
You don't like my transcriber? Okay, got it. I'll shut it off.
Yeah, please. Paul is recording this, and it will be available on our YouTube channel late after the event. We don't want any photographs because it gets in people's eyes, so no photographing also, please. Please refrain from all emotional outbursts, including applause. There will be plenty of opportunity at the end to applaud. Turn your cell phones off or silence them. If you need to take a call, please take it out into the hallway. Each candidate will be given 2 minutes to make an opening statement. I already heard that one is going to be a little shorter. Following the opening statements by the candidates, they will take questions from the league and from you, the audience, and all questions will be posed by me, the moderator. The questions are to be written on I guess this is 4x6 card, and just rate when you have the question, you have it written, just raise your hand and Kelly will collect it from you. If you need extra cards, just tell her, she'll give you extra cards. If you need a pen or a pencil, we'll give you the pen or the pencil. Each question will be answered. Everyone will get the same question. They have a minute to respond. Les has the paddles there, and we'll feel free to let you finish a sentence or a word, and then you'll be cut off. And at the end, each candidate will have 2 minutes for a closing statement. If you have any questions relating to the November 8th election, you may go to vote411.org or to mi.gov/vote. There are QR codes in the back, and we encourage you to. I was at the college today with Paul, and we talked to 171 kids. So if I get, it's because I'm talking to too many people. But the kids love the QR codes. So we encourage you to do that, or we have other ways of doing it. There's just simply written ways of doing this. The Vote 411, it also has information about each candidate that is running for state or federal election. We also will be publishing our own Vote 411 for all the different voting things in the area. So there's city commission, there's county commission, and there are school board elections. There also are 3 ballot proposals, state ballot proposals, and there's information in the back about those, and you can get that information also at vote411.org or mi.gov/vote. These guides will be here at the library, and they'll also be available at Island Books and Crafts and in other places. If you can think of good places that you would like them, just give us a call. I want to thank Bayless Public Library for assisting us with this event, and thank you also to the league members who are helping us tonight, and a big thank you to the candidates for attending and sharing their information. Serving in a public leadership position is one of dedication and personal sacrifice. So tonight we have with us Kathy Twardy, Andrew Rubinstein, Steve Habusta, and Ray Bauer. And we'll start with Kathy with an opening statement, please.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Kathy Twardy. Thank you to the League of Women's Voters for always putting this on. I always think it's a very informative event. Thank you for coming this evening. So if you don't know me, I've already been one of your city commissioners for the last 9 years. Prior to that 9 years, I served on the DDA Directors Board for 4 years. I'm running again because I love serving this community. I'm very passionate about what we do. It does definitely take a lot of time, a lot of sacrifice out of your life, but you don't do it for the money or the accolades. You do it because you serve your community, and like our mayor always likes to say that, you know, you have to serve your community. I can't remember exactly the statement that he's got. That's his. So I've been married to my husband, Steve, for 27 years. I was born and raised here in Sault Ste. Marie. We have 3 children together, Jenna, Ethan, and Dylan. We moved back here in 2008 to get out of the corporate life, purchase Harmony Health Foods. That was our first endeavor. And in 2009, I joined the DDA Board of Directors, like I said. And 6 years later, I think it was around 6 years later, we opened another little tourist store down on Portage Street called Cultured Pop, where everything in there is made in Michigan except for the beef jerky, and that's in Wisconsin, and we're attached to them. 2 years ago during COVID, we opened a convenience store in the new Osborne Commons Marketplace, or Osborne Commons Community, and we're called the Market on Osborne. My favorite thing about that project, I said to my husband, if we're going to put a store in this building, we need to make sure that the residents have access to the store from the inside without having to face the elements. So they get to come down to the main floor of the apartment community and ring a little doorbell. And that's sort of been a labor of love. We've been open for 2 years. We work our butts off in there all the time, and we've not taken a penny out of there. I'm running again just because, like I said, I love to serve my community, and as long as people continue to vote for me, I will continue to serve you. Thank you, Les.
Mr. Rubinstein.
Thank you. Welcome, everyone. And thank you to the League of Women Voters as well as Bayless Public Library for hosting the event tonight. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Andrew Rubinstein. I was recently appointed to the commission. I think it's been about 3 months now. I'm originally from Birmingham, Michigan, so about 45 minutes north of Detroit. I met my wife, Marnie, who's here tonight, about a decade ago. And we spent that time moving from Grand Rapids to San Diego to Arizona to Philly. So we bounced all around the country during my career on the business side of pro sports. We always kind of had a hankering to move back up this way. My mom always tells the story that she was pregnant with me on a Sulaks boat tour, so it was kind of meant to be up here. And so probably 6 years ago, we started pushing to find a way to move up here. ultimately about 3 years ago, accepted a position at Lake Superior State University, which got us back up this way. And ever since we got here, even throughout COVID, just tried to jump right into everything we possibly could, whether it be volunteering, joining different boards, and really doing what we can to help the community. And then both of us also got involved in the real estate realm, buying and selling as well as investing and fixing up properties to rent them out. And truthfully, I love this community. I for the longest time have wanted to be up here, and I've been ecstatic with everything. Really, more than any place we've lived, the opportunities are endless to really make an impact and improve the community and improve the area. And it's just something that in bigger cities, you don't always have the opportunity to make impacts like this.
Thank you. Steve Habusta.
To echo the sentiments that have already been said, I do want to again say thank you to the Bayless Public Library for hosting this event, as well as the League of Women's Voters for making this all possible. And I also want to say thank you to you all for being here tonight. Over the next time here, the next few minutes, you'll hear my voice, and I'm excited that you'll get to hear my vision, and you'll get to hear what I want to see in Sault Ste. Marie. But I'm even more excited in the weeks to come, the months to come, and hopefully as your commissioner in the years to come, to hear your vision and to hear your voice of what you want for this community. That's why I'm running. I'm committed to listening to your voice, and as together we can make Sault Ste. Marie a great place. So my name's Steve Habusta. I've been married to my wife Tiffany for about 20 years now. She is amazing. We have 4 children, one who is 19, and we go all the way down to 3. So we stay pretty busy in our house. I currently serve as the Director of Operations for Lake Superior State University's North Events Center, as well as the Executive Director for the Chippewa County Community Foundation. In addition, I volunteer and serve community in many ways, including at Joseph K. Lumpton Bauer Anishinaabe Public School Academy, where I've been on the school board for 7 years, 6 of which I've been the vice president of the school board. I serve as on the spiritual care team for Great Lakes Recovery, as a volunteer with the Chippewa County Sheriff's Office in the Victim Services Unit, as well as many other things. I'm running for City Commission because I love serving this community. I think Sault Ste. Marie has all sorts of great things to offer. We have an outstanding public university. We have a great tourist attraction. We have unbelievable natural resources. We have unparalleled history, and we have a vibrant small business community, and we have the largest tribe east of the Mississippi. But I think what we lack is a visionary leader to bring those pieces together, and that's what I want to do, and that's why I want to serve this community so much, and continue to serve this community in my next role as a city commissioner. Thank you.
Thank you. Ray Bauer.
Good evening. I am current City Commissioner Ray Bauer. I was first elected to City Commission in 2005. I would like to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting not only this event, but the countless events here and, of course, across the United States. And I've been involved in many of these events, both as a candidate and a spectator. So I've enjoyed them from both sides. Thank you very much. Some things about myself that I'm proud of. I'm very proud of my family, my daughters, Trinity and Maggie, both of whom are in college right now. My wife, Joan, who's here tonight. We've been married for 34 years. I'm proud of a lot of the things I've done in the community over the past 29 years since I've been living in it, including helping start the Music in the Park series back in 1998. We never knew that it would still be here more than 20 years later, and I've been hosting it for over 20 years. On City Commission, I am very proud of the reputation that I have, a reputation for being someone of integrity, of someone who is fiscally responsible, of someone who is always in favor of downtown development, and definitely pro Sault Ste. Marie in everything I do, and someone who has represented the city of Sault Ste. Marie very well since 2005. Also, just in regards to, I guess my proudest achievement as a city commissioner over this period of time was when I was able to cast the deciding vote to build a farmer's market back when that project was in its infancy. And I still enjoy the farmer's market today, and I'm very proud that I was able to help move that project along and not kill it as city commissioner back in, I believe that was 2006. So I hope that when you go to the polls, whether it is through absentee, which I know a lot of people do now, or on November 5th, please consider keeping me on the city commission. Thank you.
Okay, it's November 8th.
What did I say?
If you want to vote on November 5th, I hope you have it in front of you.
Oh, sorry.
Absentee ballot.
I actually knew that it was November 8th. I don't know why I said. Actually, November 5th is the anniversary of our first date. So I must have had that on my mind.
Okay. Okay, here's the first question, and we'll start with Andrew. What do you see as the top priorities for the commission over the next 4 years?
Without a doubt, and it's because I'm heavily involved with it, it is the lack of housing in our area. So with everything that we do, if we can't grow our population and keep people here and getting people to want to move here, we're going to struggle to be able to build and grow our community. So that starts with things like housing and making sure people have good quality, affordable places to live. And not just on the housing front too, but then you look at everything involved with moving here. So I forgot to mention our two kids, Jack and Alaire. They're 4 and 2. One of the biggest things we struggled with when we moved here, outside of just finding a place to live, was finding childcare for them. So you get someone wanting to move to this community, can't find housing, can't find childcare, can't find things to do for their kids. They're either not going to move here or choose to leave after a short amount of time, and it's our biggest responsibility to make sure people want to be here, because this is truthfully an amazing place to live.
Thank you. Steve, what do you see as the top priorities for the commission over the next 4 years?
Sure, I think the 4 things that I've identified and will continue to identify. One priority is financial stability. I think Ray Bauer has, as he's mentioned, has done a great job as part of this commission to keep Sault Ste. Marie a financially stable place, and I think we need to keep it financially stable and a great place to live that way. I think we need to expand and diversify our recreation portfolio. In doing so, we will contribute to better mental health in our community as well as a lower addiction rate. So I think that needs to become a priority as well. I think we need to address the child care / housing / labor force crisis that is hitting our community. We can do that with task force. We can do that way and really work on putting together a plan to address those crises in our community. And then one thing that I think is really important is to keep up with the culture shift that is happening, the paradigm shift that's happening in our culture. I think we need to really develop and continue to grow our broadband infrastructure. I think that one of the ways that we will attract remote workers to our community, which is a paradigm shift that's happening in our culture right now, is by having the very best broadband infrastructure we can in Sault Ste. Marie and surrounding, and so that I see as a priority as well. Thank you.
Ray Bauer, what do you see as the top priorities?
I think the top priority that we're dealing with right now as a commission is the development of the Carbide dock. You're talking about a $20 million project and a lot of money that we've already had granted to us that we could possibly lose if we don't get enough funding to complete that project. And you know, when you're talking about sums of money for development like $15 million, $20 million, and the fact that that may go away if we're not able to seal that deal, you know, that would be terrible, because that the dock is not going to get any better over the next 4 years. Also, I guess I can answer that later, but anyway, dealing with the everyday finances, especially in today's climate. Yesterday's meeting alone, we were dealing with change orders that cost the city thousands of dollars, rebids. Okay, thank you.
Kathy.
Thank you. I'm going to hop on to what Ray was saying. I do think that the most pressing thing that the City Commission is facing right now is the lack of funding for the Carbide Dock project. What that is it's all of Alfred Park along with all of Easter Day from from Portage Street all the way up to Ashman Street, including 2 new roundabouts. When we first received the $22 million grant 5 years ago, that was enough money to do that entire project. And then COVID hit, construction stopped, and then rising costs for construction has gone up. So now we're talking about a 30% funding gap that we're not going to be able to complete that project. The City Commission has been involved in meetings every single day over the last couple of months, turning over every stone, begging people. The list of people that the city manager has gone out to try to receive funding so that we can bring that whole dock back to life is unbelievable, the amount of work that they're doing. So I think that that's the most pressing thing we're facing right now. I also would like to see an expansion of quality housing at all income levels in our area. My daughter can't find a place to live, as a matter of fact. I'm working on that.
Thank you. Let's start the next question. We'll start with Steve. What can the city do to improve the city streets?
Oh, that's a great question. I think this all goes back to fiscal management and just ensuring that our fiscal process prioritizes the areas that need to be prioritized. I think sometimes we can mismanage some of that. So I think we need to prioritize some of that. We need to make sure that we have the systems in place financially to be able to do that, whether that's through grant funding, whether that's going out after more money, or whether that's through our budgeting process. We need to work on putting forth financial resources towards that issue.
Thank you. Ray.
Well, there's only so much that we can do with the money that we have, and I think everybody understands that. So what we really need to do as commissioners is use our position to lobby our legislators and our state senators and even our federal officials and explain to them the importance and get them to come to the area, show them the things that we're dealing with, show them not only how Sault Ste. Marie is, but the potential that we have. I think that right now they're doing a fantastic job with the section of the street down Portage. I don't know how many of you have been there, but that section of street down there by the locks and by Fudgy Row and all that is going to be wonderful. And the best part is that they've been doing the work at night. They haven't had to close down the road and disrupt the businesses that are there. Thank you. We're good.
Thank you. Kathy.
Well, we really only have 2 types of streets in our town. We have MDOT roads and then we have local roads. MDOT does their projects whenever they feel like they really want to do their projects, and they kind of inform us that they're going to be coming to town and doing Ashman. That's what Portage Street is right now, is an MDOT project. You'll see Ashman Street getting done next year. So their projects get done. The way that we can do the local roads is through the gas capture. And the gas capture is not coming to us the way that it should be coming to us. And that goes down to lobbying our legislators, our state representatives, our state senators, and telling them we need to be able to get that gas capture so that we can do more of our local roads. Right now it runs about $800,000 to do 1 mile of road. And the reason that the county can do way more roads than us is because they don't have to do underbelly infrastructure. We are always doing new catch basins, we're running electrical, we're doing a lot of more underneath of the road work when they just have to miter and resurface out in the county. So city roads cost a lot more money to do just because of the sewer systems.
Thank you. Andrew.
Thank you. So with roads, it's a balancing act, and it's going to be a constant challenge. So on top of lobbying our legislators, you have to look at, okay, if we're going to redo local roads, we don't want to do that at the expense of other city services. Where I live, and arguably the section of road where I live, might be one of the worst in the city. So I see it every single day, and I would love that to be redone, but not at the expense of certain other things that we can provide. I also think it's important too to recognize, and this is on us as a commission to get out there for people to know that if you see a pothole, if you see a street that's in rough shape, even though it's not getting done, if you call the city, they will respond to fill the pothole. I forget what those little rock bead things are, but spraying those out to at least have temporary fixes. It's not always the greatest, but while we were doing the work, Those are some of the smaller things that can be done. And it's just important to recognize as you see things like Portage and Meridian that's going to get done, and then eventually with the Carbide Dock project and Easter Day, recognizing those accomplishments that are getting done through the state.
Thank you. Question number 4. Remember, I was busy. Do you have any suggestions to improve the parking situation in downtown Sault Ste. Marie? And we'll start with Ray Bauer.
Wow, that's a rough one for me because I've actually been against a lot of of what has been discussed lately, and that is taking away the free parking on Portage and Ashland. I own a business at the corner of Portage and Ashland, so I mean, but not so I can't get over like that perspective that I have that hits me, you know, right where I live. But I just don't think that the general public, the tourists, I don't think they care. The tourists would pay, or the tourists would use their app, etc. But if it's changing your lifestyle and whether or not you go into this coffee shop because you can or can't park for free, or whether or not you utilize this business or you get your haircut here or there because of that, I think that it would definitely hurt business if you would take away the free parking at Portage and Ashland. We have been able to redo a lot of the parking lots, so that's a good thing, and especially the one by the firehouse is going to be a tremendous improvement. Thank you.
Thank you. Kathy?
Parking is an animal of its own accord. My husband sat on the parking committee for 12 years, and they could never really figure out a positive solution that is great for the entire community about parking. And so that's why right now the City Commission is kind of taking it like an onion, one layer at a time. We're working on one portion. We just had all those new parking lots redone. We did not want to drive holes in them for meters. That's why we decided to put the kiosks in, but you don't want to have the app only, because people like my parents who don't use an app, they don't even travel with their phone, they're not going to come downtown and use the app to pay for parking. So it needs to be able to fit all of the different generations. Even me, I don't tie my credit card to my phone. I'm probably too conspiracy theory for that. But I'm not going to do it, and I'm not going to use the app. I'd rather put quarters in the meter. But so the commission is taking its time right now. We're looking at one area of the community at a time. If things are working, we're going to stick with it. If it's not working there, then we'll change it. But nothing's ever set in stone.
Thank you. Andrew?
Thank you. So with parking, it's going to be something like Kathy just mentioned. It's going to be fluid, and there's going to be trial and error as we do things. Is 2-hour free parking the right answer? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe it could be something where it's 15 or 30 minutes, so you still have time to go into that coffee shop or go pick something up while not cannibalizing parking. Like if with free 2-hour parking, someone could park downtown, but they're going to their friend's house. They're not actually going to shop and do things downtown. So just shortening that, alleviate that. So it's something where, like mentioned, the tourists are going to pay. We as residents want to be incentivized to come downtown, spend our money downtown, support the community. But I think it's going to come from trial and error, and there's no one-size-fits-all perfect fit to it. The other piece of it, too, is with parking enforcement. So it's what came first, the chicken or the egg. I truthfully think it needs to be a priority to have that enforcement fully there. Because right now, a lot of times you park and you can be there for 3 hours and you may not be getting tagged for it.
Thank you. Steve?
Yeah, I just spent the weekend in Indianapolis, Indiana. If you think we have a parking problem in our downtown, I would encourage you to go down there and walk blocks upon blocks to get to where you're intended to go. I think we need to be strategic about parking. I think if the commission decides to charge for parking to create more revenue driven into that, then I think we need to use that revenue and pour it back into downtown to do things like plow the sidewalks, which is currently on the business owners to do. So now we may be charging for parking, but we're pouring that money right back into downtown, and we're pouring that revenue right back into our community, creating avenues for people, because as one city commissioner once said, we don't have a parking problem, we have a lazy problem. And I think there might be, if we provide ways for people to be able to walk and we make it easier for them, now we've added to the solution in being creative and not just looking at parking. In addition, I do want to say Justin Nedber and Linda Basista did a fantastic job getting the grants to do things like Court parking lot and Arlington parking lot, and we need to be aware of that and do more of that.
Thank you. The next question. If the Adopt a Park moves forward, how would you spend the money saved in the Parks and Recreation Department? Kathy, you first.
Yeah, well, the point is not to save money in the Parks and Rec department. It's more to relieve some of the burden from the DPW and the parks workers. So be able to accomplish more within our parks. So the Adopt a Park program is really for a single individual or a large group to be able to take up some of the non-unionized maintenance of one of the parks that they've chosen. So those they're probably not going to be mowing the grass because that's what the union workers do, but it could be emptying the trash cans on the weekend, could be picking up dog doo-doo, a lot of the other different things like that, but it's not specifically going to be set for capital improvement projects.
Thank you. Andrew.
Look, as somebody who helped bring this to the forefront at the commission, when I saw it come through the Parks and Rec Board, it was never meant to be a cost-saving thing for the city. You have to look at it more as this program is not going to cost the city additional funds. So it's something we as a community can take a shared responsibility. You already have groups that are supporting these parks and doing things for them, but now it's something that's publicized. Groups are going to get recognized for it. It's going to be an official city program that you're going to see more out there. And the hope is that it inspires others to want to get involved. And it's something too where you don't necessarily have to be a city resident to get involved in having a say in a program like this and make this a better community and a better place to live, even if you can't vote because you're outside of city limits. But the biggest thing is it was never meant to be a cost-saving thing for the city, just a way to enhance and for us to help push and move forward.
Thank you. Steve.
So first of all, as a recreation professional, I think that the Adopt a Parks program is a fantastic idea, and I'm glad that that came to the forefront. And I do understand that it's not a revenue-generating program, but I do want to say that our parks program, specifically through Ani Osborne Park, has seen significant increase in funding, which I think should be used, that significant increase in funding should be used to hire a recreation professional to oversee. I understand we have a Department of Public Works. I understand that they oversee parks, but I think with a professional who is in the world of parks and recreation, they can make money off of our parks and recreational assets, which are currently losing money and subsidized by other areas in our city. So I would love to see us use additional funding through our parks and recreation to hire a recreation professional dedicated to continuing to grow our parks and recreation program.
Thank you. Ray.
Wow, hate going last. And I say that because most of what I could say has pretty much already been said, except in regards to what Steve Habusta just said. I would be interested, whether or not you're elected, I would be interested in hearing what you have to say in regards to money making with the parks, because I really don't see that personally. I just, see the parks as they are, for people to enjoy. We have a lot of parks, a lot of pocket parks. We have a lot of parks that that don't even necessarily belong to the city. In fact, most of the park area in the downtown falls under that category. But this program, though, specifically, we're not going to be able to save any money or bank any money off of that and move it anywhere else. So my apologies to the person who asked that question, but that's just not going to happen.
Thank you. The next question. Do you know what the status is on the city's action to halt the opening of the Armstrong Font Teen Foster Home? And we start with Andrew.
Yeah, so that is something that's at the state level at this point. It's not something we as a commission at this point can necessarily stop or have a strong impact. I believe it's at the I forget what it's called at the state level. Tax tribunal. It's currently at the tax tribunal, and it's a legal issue that we can't necessarily drive without putting the city in potential legal trouble. So that's the thing we have to be careful of and just kind of watch the process play out. Versus, again, we got to make sure that the city is doing things legally at the state level as well.
Thank you. Steve?
Yeah, as the only non-sitting commissioner on this panel today, I'm not privy to the legal discussions that the city has had regarding the tax tribunal in regards to that property. So unfortunately, I cannot provide much insight. I know that there's lots of rumors floating throughout town. I've heard those rumors, but I'm not one who delves in rumors, and I would, and so there is no way for me to provide an answer to that question.
Thank you. Ray?
Yeah, I mean, the rumor mill in this town has always been poor at best, and I mean, at its worst, it's just a total nightmare. And of course, social media nowadays exacerbates that problem. But this is not really an issue that the city commission is dealing with or can even deal with at this time. So it's not a city issue at the moment.
Kathy?
Yeah, I have to agree with both Andrew and Ray. This was really nothing that came to the City Commission. We never really saw any of the information on this. All that we were told was that there was a tax tribunal case. And at that point, the only decision that the Commission makes is whether we're going to hire an attorney to go through the tax tribunal. But the information, it doesn't come to us at our level.
Thank you. Next question. How can we have more transparency in the city spending? And the first question goes to Steve.
Yeah, I appreciate that question. And one of the things that I've really done is to take opportunity to read through budgets and audits throughout the city. So I think one of the ways we can provide transparency is continue to make information available and make it available sooner. Greg Collins, several years ago, even at his last commissioner forum, mentioned how the timeline for getting out board packets or commission packets, and I just think really just continuing to improve upon that, continuing to get information available to the public is really important. But there is a lot of information available, and I think we need to make sure as leaders we're making that known to the public that you can go and you can get the budget, you can go and you can get the audit. In fact, I went and got other cities' budgets and audits, and so I could compare and contrast. So I think one of the big things we have to do transparency is just make people aware of what's out there and what they can read and what they can get information from.
Thank you. Ray?
I don't believe the city can be any more transparent when it comes to information, especially when it comes to spending, because all of our meetings are open. The packets are readily available to the general public. And frankly, and I've been on the commission now for quite a long time, and nowadays, when I look out into the audience, I mean, the audience is practically non-existent. I want to say that at last night's meeting, Marta alone was the only non-city employee sitting in that audience. I would encourage people, especially people who have either an axe to grind or who think that something is up, to please come to the meetings and listen and get the packets and follow along and watch what we're doing, because it's all out there for the whole world to see every single time.
Thank you. Kathy?
Sure. So twice monthly, any amount of money that the city spends is done publicly during our open meeting at City Hall. And again, like Ray said, those meetings are open to the public. The agenda is readily available, and they're also videotaped and put on YouTube for you to watch at any time. As far as the budget process, we start talking about the budget process like in November, December, and we get to it like March, April, May. So we're constantly making the community aware that the budget process is open to the public. Everything with the budget is open to the public. You can come to every meeting. You can come to the organizational meeting, come to our goal setting sessions. You can come to everything with the budget. We go through the process. If there's anything that any commissioner wants to hit or wish on there, we do that at that time. Then we have a second meeting to satisfy the hits and wishes, and then we present the budget, the proposed budget, to the community. We have 2 public meetings, and at that time the community has the opportunity to come up and say whether they like the budget or not.
Thank you. Andrew?
Yeah. So I think everyone's touched on it. It's shared responsibility. So as city residents, show up to meetings, get involved with boards. If you have a question or can't find something, ask one of us as commissioners. Call City Hall and ask. They've done a great job anytime we've personally had questions, even before being on the commission. If we were looking for information, they were able to help us find it. It's also on us as a commission to make sure our city residents know where to find things. So finding those pain points, and if there's a gap and hey, why don't people know this exists or know how to do it, figure out a way to publicly bring it up at a meeting, share it on social media. So truthfully, I do think it is a shared responsibility between city residents, and why I wanted to get involved in the commission. I saw, okay, there's things going on that maybe I don't like, or I want to make sure are done correct in the future. And there's a lot of things that I do like, and the best way for me was to get involved and ask questions, and I really think everyone should have that mindset of shared responsibility.
Thank you. Next question. What actions, if any, do you think should be taken to protect the city's water, air, and land for current and future generations? And we'll start with Ray.
Would you repeat that question? It was long.
What actions, if any, do you think should be taken to protect the city's water, air, and land for current and future generations?
Wow, that's a very good question, and those are some priorities that I don't think that the city necessarily, brings into our goal-setting sessions, and maybe we should. But take just yesterday, we were voting on some new equipment, replacing some equipment in the wastewater treatment plant, and that's the water that goes directly back into the river, right? That's one way off the top of my head. I mean, we have to make sure that as a city, that the things that we do are putting, especially with the water, because that's what we deal with more than the air. We don't have like a lot of industry on our side of the border like they do at the steel mill, and not much we can do about that. But I do think that we should start thinking about these things in goal setting. And as a matter of fact, just on the basis of that question, I think that I'm going to consider that as we come into the next goal setting session if I'm reelected.
Thank you. Kathy.
Thank you. Well, I thought a lot about this question because Kelly sent these out to us a couple of weeks ago. And so as far as the land is concerned, I can think of one specific thing that the city just did recently down at our DPW garage, which is build our salt shed. And so building that salt shed is going to protect the land and around it especially. And so that kind of covers that. We also, every time we're doing a street construction project, we take into consideration that we're doing everything according to the EPA. We have spent a lot of money recently on our water treatment plant and on our wastewater treatment plant. So the water treatment plant is to make sure that we all have safe quality drinking water. We replaced every single monitor and what are those called? Meter in everyone's homes. And so that was done at the cost of the water fund. And then also we put a lot of money recently into our wastewater treatment plant. We replaced some crank screws, which you're more than welcome to go down and look at those crank screws. But we've spent a lot of money lately on our water.
Thank you. Andrew.
Yeah, so land, air, and water are arguably, they are our biggest asset up here. So at the commission level, we can make sure some of those bigger things like the wastewater treatment plant and the water facilities are all set and good to go. But that's why I felt the Adopt a Park program was so important when it came up, because again, I talked about shared responsibility, and it's from the top all the way down. And if we as a collective community all understand that, we can truly make an impact, down to picking up a piece of trash up on the ground all the way up to realizing, okay, we need to take care of these larger items so the Sioux doesn't run into environmental issues like we've seen all across the country. And that's where we can help him, and then you as city residents can help him with programs like the Adopt a Park.
Thank you. Steve.
Yeah, I really appreciate the answers that have been said, because I do think we need to recognize the work that the city has already done in things like the wastewater treatment and the water treatment plants, as well as other areas. I think we need to make sure that our city administration is adhering to all EPA, all EGLE, and all DNR related policies to help make sure that they're the experts. So we need to make sure that we're listening to them and we're following the guidelines that they have set up in each and everything we do as we set up policies and as we set up with we need to make sure our administration follows those. And so again, just being involved and I love what Ray said about having that as part of the goal session, making sure that representatives from EGLE and from the EPA and the DNR have some input into some of those things.
Thank you. Next question. We're back to downtown parking. And take it from the point of view of the senior citizen who doesn't have a smartphone, does not know how to use an app. And then the and also to consider the high school sporting events that sort of take up a lot of the parking. So what can be done to help outside of an app? And we'll start with Kathy.
Well, that was why the city commission said we're not going to consider app-only metering, because there's a lot of people that don't have a smartphone, that aren't going to use the smartphone, aren't going to have their credit card attached to the smartphone. So there will be options. Like Andrew said before, if we're going to allow free 20 to 30 minute parking, there will be kiosks where you can go, you register your license plate, you get that 30 minutes for free. None of this is all set in stone. This is all conceptual at this point. There will also be an availability for you to deposit coins and or dollars into that kiosk. And you can also use the QR code and use the app. So I don't think that we can just choose to be an app-free or an app-only community. That's just not feasible.
Thank you. Andrew.
So I would agree with everything Kathy said. I think part of it is you have to have some aspect of free parking as you're looking at those things. And then Kathy said it perfectly. You have to give different options. And then if an option is ever to go away, you have to be able to find a way to educate everyone on how to use those different options and have sessions for people on, hey, if you're having trouble or don't understand this is how you implement it. In the pro sports world, and many of you probably see it, a lot of teams have switched to digital ticketing, right? Some teams are all digital ticketing, and some people might not know how to use the app. Even someone who worked in pro sports, I struggle with using these apps sometimes. So what we saw on the team side is doing as much as you can from an educational standpoint, and you can't just rip the Band-Aid off because it's just not going to end well.
Thank you. Steve.
Transparency and education. I think those are two key areas when we talk about parking or pretty much any area in the city. We need to make sure transparency of why we're making the decisions and all aspects of that, and then education on that decision and how that will affect people's life and how we can change and how we can, when we talk about parking, we can talk about educating on where to park, what spots are available, what locations are available, how to use the different machines, what the options are. There are so many different ways that we can educate. So as a city, we need to be transparent, but we also need to educate. I hate when Facebook changes. I hate when I go log in and all of a sudden it's changed from what I've used for the past 16 months. But guess what? About 3 weeks in, I don't even notice it anymore because I've gotten used to it. I understand it. I think every time we do something for growth, is going to be pain and there's going to be some hurt. But over time, if we educate and we're transparent about it, we can grow through that.
Thank you. Ray.
I think that apps are good for for a part of the population when those apps work. I have actually been in a couple of different cities and tried to use parking apps that didn't work. So I've been on that end of it as well. And I know that if we went to all app, then we might as well be telling a certain segment of our population, don't ever come downtown, because they would stay away, and we can't afford to lose that business. And speaking of, one thing that I wanted to go back and mention, just on, because it's on parking, but with Andrew saying before about 15 to 30 minute free parking, is that there are a lot of businesses that would not be helped by that. I certainly would not be helped by that. Maloney's wouldn't be, the Palace wouldn't be. Frank's Place, Zorba's, none of the restaurants would be helped by that. If we had 15 to 30-minute parking, what am I going to do? Say, come in, bang back a glass of wine, and see you later, and you know what I mean, and go get the rest of your parking? I mean, I can't do that.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. Next question. As a commissioner, where do you see your role in sustaining a solid relationship with the city of Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario? Where do you see the city of Sault, Ontario playing into a strong and vibrant Sault, Michigan? And we start with Andrew.
So I think it goes back to shared responsibility between both cities, transparency and communication, and keeping those lines of communications open and putting together events and opportunities that's going to bring our communities together. One of the best things I've seen since I've been here, and it was right before COVID, was when Lake State hosted a game over in Sault, Ontario. You really saw it as an unbelievable opportunity to bring both cities together, to bring a lot of fans back to Lake State and back into our community who maybe haven't come over this way to see the Lakers, who maybe had that drawn interest. And I remember coming back over the bridge thinking, wow, it would be great to have more events like this over in Sault, Ontario. Great to have events like that for Sault, Ontario to come over into Sault, Michigan. Unfortunately, I think it was within weeks after that COVID actually hit and kind of stymied that a little bit. But we're probably now in an opportunity where we can start to look at those things to bring the two communities together, because it can really be a great symbiotic relationship.
Thank you. Steve.
Yeah, I think a strong Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario leads to a strong Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan. I think that a strong Lake Superior State University leads to a strong Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan. I think a strong Sioux tribe leads to a strong Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan. I think we need to be aware that our success as a city is not solely upon us, that there are other entities like the city of Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario, like the university, that we need to be willing to work with as commissioners, that we need to be willing to form relationships with, and that we need to be willing to grow together with, because there's strength in that. There's strength in numbers, and there's strength in working together, and so I think it's really important that we maintain a good relationship with Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario. We really look at our policies and procedures as a government to make sure that those lead to success in working together.
Thank you. Ray.
Over the years, in the events that we have had with the city and also the city officials from Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario, I've been able to establish friendships and fostered these friendships so that, you know, in the time that I was no longer on the commission, or now some of these folks are no longer on their city council, but they're still leaders in their community, though, and they still have their finger on the pulse of their community. And the fact that I can talk to them, or they still come into the brewery and such and sit down and talk about how things are going on over there and how they're feeling about, you know, the post-COVID world and the transitions that we're making. This is all, I think, very valuable information in dealing with cross-border issues, which, you know, there are a certain amount of cross-border issues. We weren't really able to address anything during the times of COVID, especially because, well, I think you all know why. So.
Thank you. Kathy.
Sure, I'll answer that question. I voted for Matthew Shoemaker today in the Sioux Today for the next mayor of Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario. So we have a great relationship with them. For 40 years, we had a Twin Sault's annual Christmas dinner. We also got together at least once a year, if not twice a year, and we had a Twin Sault's commission meeting. We went over to their commission chambers. It wasn't anything official. We wrote a couple of resolutions. It was all really fun. We had our EDC there. We had our DDA there. And we had great relationships with them up until 2 years ago, until unfortunately COVID hit. But we would like to get those relationships going again. That Christmas party was one of the best things that we did. And again, I mean, Frank Fata, he and Pina just walked into the brewery a couple of months ago, and it was great to see him again. I mean, we've got some really, really good friends over there that we've met over the years, and we've worked together great.
Thank you. Next question. How can we make the city more attractive to young families? And we're going to start with Andrew.
I think I'm a prime example of that. So Our daughter was born in November of 2018, and our son Jack was born in, I hope I get this right, October of 2020. And certainly it can be a challenge, especially when they're very, very little, of finding daycare, finding things to do for your kids. But it is also what you make of it. So there is a lot of really great things in this city, and I talked about it before, where it's very, very cool to be a part of that growth. You look at things like the Children's Museum, and a lot of cities we lived in already had things like that, and now to be able to be a part of that, so when our kids hopefully want to stay in Sault Ste. Marie, their kids can then enjoy the benefits of those type of things that we're building towards to help want to attract families here.
Steve?
Yeah, that's great because I'm the other young family guy. I think that there is so much we can do to attract young families, but I want to go back to broadband infrastructure. I think that's something and I mentioned this at the last forum. I have a 35-year-old sister who is a young family. She's a research pharmacist. She was given the opportunity to work remotely. She decided to choose between Erie, Pennsylvania, where my dad lives, or Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan, because she wanted a low cost of living. She wanted the natural resources. She wanted everything that we have to offer. But she was worried. She was worried that her connectivity would not be what she needed for work. So I think one of the great ways that we can attract young people and young families to this area is through that. I also think we do a fantastic job with activities for young people. Andrew and I are always on the go, whether it's Riverfest, which I helped plan a few weeks ago, which was a great opportunity for families, and there are just so many different things happening for families. But again, we need to educate our community on that. We need to let them know. We need to get rid of any of those stereotypes that are out there that might not be true.
Thank you. Ray?
I think that Sault Ste. Marie is a great place to raise a family. It was when I started my family 20 years ago, and I think it still is now for the same reasons. It's very low crime. The education is very good in this town. I think the schools are good. I believe that there's actually a lot of things to do, provided the parents are engaging their children. And that's, you can live in the biggest city or the smallest town, but if mom and dad are engaging with the kid, you can go sled riding for 6 months out of the year, and the kids never get tired of it. At least mine never did, and frankly, I never did either, truthfully. There are sports to participate in. There are natural, the kids like to go kayaking. There's just so much to do around here. I will say, though, that the Children's Museum is a great project. I really hope they can pull it off. And, we've helped and done what we've been able to do as far as to raise money, because, as you know, money's the lifeblood of any project.
Thank you. Kathy?
Thank you. The addition of the Children's Museum will be fantastic, and I also believe that the Sea-Free building for young children right now, that's also great. I send a lot of families down there every single day who are coming to our town to visit the splash pad. I see Lisa Young in the back. With the addition of the splash pad, young children, mine are grown now, but when we moved back here, they were in 2nd grade and 5th grade, so they were still pretty small, and they maybe did exchange the indoor museum, which is what we did in New York City, for swimming in a pool or going to the beach or picking up a dead frog out in the woods, which was, my kids couldn't believe the first time they saw a dead frog. So there's a lot for families to do up here. It's also a very safe place to raise your children. That was one of the reasons we moved back. Our children had never had freedom before. I was a New York mom, and the second week we lived here, I put out an Amber Alert on my son. But he was just with one of my childhood friends, Andy Armstrong, and his sons. And Andy was like, Kathy, nobody wants your kid. You got to feed them. So not to say you still have to keep an eye on your children, but.
Thank you. Next question. How do you prioritize projects when seeking grant funding? And Steve, we'll start with you.
Yeah, that's a good question. When seeking grant funding, I think you need to go back to the strategic plan and the goal planning sessions that the city has set up. I think that process is there for a reason. So I think when you're seeking grant funding, I think it goes back to that goal setting, and it goes back to the strategic planning of the city. But I think as part of the goal planning, strategic planning, of the city, you need to make sure you are intimately engaged with listening to your community. There have been some great things that have been brought to the forefront as needs in our community, and if we're actively listening to our community, then when we go forward in those strategic planning sessions and goal planning sessions, we can incorporate those things into our future, into our strategic plan, into where we want to go. But if we're not listening, then it doesn't do any good. So I think that's how I go forth in prioritizing.
Thank you. Ray?
As far as prioritizing, I mean, we do have our goal setting session, and that's the time when each individual commissioner comes forth to let their priorities be known. We vote at that time and are able to put out a chart as to this is where most of our priorities are as a group. This is where these are our secondary priorities as a group. Over the years, and the electronic, the electronic age, the communication age has made it so that people who can't necessarily get in touch with us as individuals can certainly do it through email or whatever and say, what I think would be a good idea, Commissioner Bauer, this, or what, or when I'm walking through Pat's and people just come up to me and they've got ideas, and some of them aren't so great, but some of them are really good. And the more ideas you entertain, the more good ideas you're going to come out. Just mathematically speaking, that's the way that is. So I try to listen to as many ideas as possible.
Thank you. Kathy?
Thank you. Grant funding is attached to very specific projects. So if we're talking about grant funding for roads, then that would be grant funding for roads. But right now, one of the things we're working on is the Master Recreation Plan. This is a plan that we have to file with the state of Michigan. It sits in the state of Michigan for the next 5 years, and we're having all these community meetings right now. We're inviting people to come and give input. What would you like to see develop over the next 5 years as far as recreation in the city of Sault Ste. Marie? And once that plan is fully developed, then it gets filed with the state, and when those projects come available and we can do them, we apply for grant funding, and then we can complete those projects. But those projects can't be completed if we don't have them in the Master Rec Plan, and we don't get that filed with the state of Michigan.
Thank you. Andrew?
Thank you. So it's certainly important to have our top priorities. With grants, you don't always have an unlimited amount of time to apply for them. So I kind of look at it like we do at Lake State from a fundraising perspective, which is a lot of what I'm involved with. Every department at the university, in the ideal situation, has here's our top big priorities all the way down to the small priorities. That way, when grants do come up, no matter what it's for, we know that we can strike, go for it, and have a full understanding of what we're trying to accomplish. Yes, would it be great if tomorrow a grant came out that we could go after roads? Absolutely. But from the road perspective, we have to understand what are our top priorities all the way down to the small, so that way hopefully that opportunity comes up and we can get some of those things done. But really across every department at the city, it's important to have that. So when the opportunity does come, we know we can jump at it.
Thank you. Next question. Would you promote new businesses coming into the area? And you might want to address all the empty storefronts. And we'll start with Ray.
Well, the answer to that is of course. Of course you want new business to come to town, because business means development, it means jobs, it means more people in the other businesses. The more we grow, the more it's exponential, right? I do think, though, that there has been for a long time an underlying current, of, as I was talking before about the rumor mill and the grapevine and everything, that people seem to think that the city commission has way more impact on whether or not a business comes to town than we do. There were people years ago that I used to call the olive gardeners, because they were always complaining, how come you don't get an olive garden? It's like, I had nothing to do with that. I mean, if somebody, that's corporate. And, when Applebee's came, they didn't have anything to do with that one way or the other. Sometimes it's just, the natural progression of things in the business world.
Thank you. Kathy?
Short answer is yes. I want any business to come to town, even though I own 3 small businesses. That doesn't mean that I'm anti-big box. I mean, big box, small box, they all make up an entire community, but the commission doesn't have the opportunity to say what can come to town and what can't come to town. We do have an EDC, an Economic Development Corporation. We also have a Smart Zone. And so the EDC is the one who's supposed to be fostering future business developments coming into the community. And they have their own board of directors. They're governed underneath the city, but we really don't have anything to do with who they're marketing to and who they're going out to seek, like the Olive Garden. As far as the empty storefronts downtown, every single one of them is owned by someone. They just choose not to put anything in there, or maybe it's not up to par or standard where somebody actually wants to rent it. So you can't just take away somebody's building, even though it's owned by somebody. I would love to see them all filled. I have 3 businesses downtown. I want all kinds of commerce.
Andrew.
I think everyone said the obvious answer. Of course, we want new businesses coming to town. I do think there is some aspect of a delicate balance of, yes, we want to get as many new businesses as we can here, but also we want to make sure there's not something coming in that really isn't a fit or a huge need for our city. And ideally, it's businesses coming in that are going to create a lot of jobs versus something coming in that really isn't going to help on that front. But then I also think we have to look internally. So I mentioned it earlier, where here more than any big city, where financially it can be really difficult, and not that it's not difficult to start a business in Sault Ste. Marie, but the barrier to entry is definitely a little bit lower, and there's a lot more opportunity where if you want to start a business, you can reach out to people who have done it a lot easier. You can get into a building or get into an opportunity a lot easier than you might not be able to in other cities. So I think it's important to look internally as well on how businesses can be started.
Thank you. Steve.
Yeah, of course we want to promote new businesses, and I'll tell you why I think it's so important, and that's because of the dark store issue. And so the more of those dark stores that we can fill, the better our assessed value and the better we'll do as a community. So I think that's really important. As a commission, though, I think our responsibility is just make sure our policies and procedures set a framework that businesses feel like they can't come in. We need to make sure that our policies and procedures are set up in such a way, whether it's housing, whether it's businesses, whatever that looks like, that those support growth and don't contribute to pushing people away from our community. So those are the areas what I would want to address as a commissioner, to make sure that our policies and procedures are set up best for that success.
Thank you. I'm going to make this the last question, if that's okay with the other people in charge. We need more access to the waterfront. The pathway along the Power Canal is wonderful, but citizens need access to the waterfront from the powerhouse to at least Rotary Park. What, if anything, can you do about that? I'm going to start with Kathy.
From the powerhouse to Rotary Park. Well, whatever's not privately owned, the city does eventually have a plan to work on extended parking or walking paths and biking paths. There already is a 10-foot path along Portage Street, but when you look at a lot of that waterfront, MCM Marine is privately owned. The city can't control their waterfront. Also down by the Elks, that's privately owned. We can't control their waterfront. So there are large portions that the city can't really do anything with. And then there are portions where we can. We can continue to put in more walking and biking paths. We were supposed to continue the Power Canal walking trail this summer, but we ran into a little bit of an issue with Cloverland needing to shore up the wall of the Power Canal. And so that's been promised to us at the same cost next year. So hopefully the walking trail will then continue on from Ashland down to Portage Street. And that's going to be, I think that's been a great addition to our community. Unfortunately, it was vandalized, but we'll keep fixing it.
Thank you. Andrew.
Yeah, so I think part of it is an education piece on making sure everyone understands what we do what we do and don't have available to us from a waterfront standpoint, and then just looking across the board at the projects we are completing and what we plan to complete in the future. And that's why things too, like the carbide dock project, is so vitally important for us to get pushed through and for the city to get pushed through, because that's going to open up additional waterfront for city residents to have access to outside of the industrial piece of it, which affects everything. I mean, for Lake State, we have Seafree right in our backyard on the water there, and I'm sure, I know at the university level, we would love to see more access around that area as well.
Thank you. Steve?
So the first thing I want to do is celebrate that we do have some industrial waterfront. I think that's the flip side, is that we live in a community with industrial waterfront, and there are many communities in northern Michigan that don't have industrial waterfront, which we can use, and we have used strategically to benefit our community. On top of that, I want to educate. I want to educate about opportunities to use the waterfront, what's available, where we can use. And then finally, as I've said before, I want to expand our parks and rec. I want to expand opportunities along the water included in that. I think there's ways to do it. I know Commissioner Bauer called to question that, but I'll just say this. I took an ice rink that was not making any money, and if you call me for ice Monday through Thursday, I'm not going to be able to sell you any because it's sold. I took a pool that was not making any money and made 15 grand over the summer. So there's opportunities to make money on the recreation front, and I think when we do that, we pour that right back into our recreation and expand waterfront access, expand waterfront opportunities, and really grow our Parks and Rec program through that, especially along the water, our greatest resource.
Thank you. Ray?
As we've heard previously, and again, I hate going last for that reason, but in regards to the waterfront, especially like in around through where MCM Marine is and such, I mean, we can only control what we control. If it's, if it's not our property, if we don't have access to that, I don't know how, the city can really develop it. I don't see where MCM Marine would think that it would be in their best interest to put a walking path, where they're doing industry. It just wouldn't make sense for them, and they're really the opinion that matters, aren't they? Because it's their property. So but we are doing a good job, I think, with the parts that we do control, and that is again with the carbide dock, if we can get that project to completion. And that's a big if. I mean, I worry about that a whole lot because there's so much money at stake.
Thank you. And we're now into closing questions or closing statements, and you each have 2 minutes to do the closing statement. And we're going to start with Ray.
One thing, I'm going to start my closing statement by saying one other thing about the last statement, and that is, if anybody wants a really nice place to walk in Sault Ste. Marie that is close to the waterfront, you should go down to the marina. And I walk down there all the time. It is beautiful down there. Walking down on the boardwalk, checking out the Canadian waterfront, the action on the river and everything. I walk down there practically every day. So I think that that's one place where people really don't enjoy. I think the general public does not as much as they really should. That said, it's been my pleasure to sit on the City Commission for as long as I have. I hope that you, and I hope that the City of Sault Ste. Marie sees fit to elect me on November 8th and bring me back for 4 more years. I have dealt with every issue with thoughtfulness, without my own interest at heart, with integrity, and I promise that I will do that moving forward. If it doesn't happen, then que sera, sera. But I do think that I've done a good job over these past years. I actually, and the reason I'm on the board now is due to appointment. And when I was appointed, I didn't think I was going to run again. But the past year and a half sitting on the board and seeing the good that I can do, the influence that I can have among commissioners who are not as experienced and may not know some of the depth of some of the issues like I do, makes me feel like, there is a place for me on that board as it is configured, and I believe that my time is up. Thank you very much.
Kathy, thank you. As I said before, if people are going to continue to vote for me and elect me, I am more than happy to serve this community. I've done it proudly over the last 13 years. This is where my husband and I have decided that we're going to live out the rest of our lives. We've invested over $1 million in our downtown area of our own, well, Old Mission Bank's money, and we have no intentions on going anywhere. We love it here. We both serve. My husband is on the ZBA. He's also on 2 county boards, and we love serving the public. And anytime anybody can call me, in fact, I had somebody walk in my door yesterday, a disgruntled business owner with the Portage Street project, and I let him bend my ear while I was making popcorn. And as soon as he walked out the door, I called the city manager, and I believe the city manager looked into it, called him today. He feels much better. He's not happy. He's still not happy about the Portage Street project, but it's going to be beautiful when it's done. And I know that these are, issues that we all have to deal with. And again, but I want anybody to know that my door is always open. I never hide my phone number. I make my phone number as public as possible so that people can call me and ask me any question, come to me with any concern, any problem. And if you choose to elect me on November 8th, I will proudly serve you for the next 4 years.
Andrew.
Thank you. Well, first off, again, thank you to the League of Women Voters and the library for hosting this event. And thank you to all of you for coming out. I know everyone couldn't be here that wanted to be, but it truthfully means that each of you cares about the city and what we're doing by coming out tonight. In a closing statement, one thing for me that I've always seen in good leaders are someone who can lead by example. That's something that I've try to do throughout my life, have done throughout my working life, and have done since I came to the city of Sault Ste. Marie. Even before the thought of joining the commission, it was, okay, how can I get involved? How can I do things to make this a better place to live? And ultimately why I wanted to be on the commission and was fortunate enough to get appointed and then run again here in November. And why I hope for your vote is just knowing I'm someone who's going to lead by example, who's going to be out there and not just showing up to meetings and half paying attention, but really being engaged in what we're trying to do and move things forward.
Thank you. Steve.
Thank you again for being here today and taking the time and asking some great questions. I truly appreciate it. I think if the voters of Sault Ste. Marie are looking for a visionary leader, somebody with governmental leadership experience, and somebody who spent the majority of their life serving this community, then I'm someone that they should vote for. I've done it as a pastor, I've done it as a coach, I've done it as a recreation professional, I've done it as a nonprofit director, I've done it as a school board member, and I've done it as a volunteer with countless different agencies and organizations. And I'm ready to continue to lead this community through the city commission. I would love your vote. I would love for you to vote for just someone who is dedicated to making this difference in this community. I've shown it time and time again, and I hope you've seen that, and I hope you want to continue to see that. So thank you.
Thank you. Again, thank you all for attending this evening. I hope that you learned almost as much as I did. And thank you again to the Bayless staff and to all of our league members who have made this possible. And let's express our appreciation of the candidates who are here tonight. And before we do that, Scott Marble, who is also running for the City Commission, was unable to attend tonight because of a
Work
conflict. So anyway, thank you all for coming, and nice rousing round of applause. Again, we have league information in the back, and thank you very much.
Okay, I got a couple.
Sure.
Okay, so you can Carbide gave us that right next to the powerhouse.
Thank you.
20 years ago.